A centuries-old vase, a cursed empress, and a family unraveling one death at a time. What happens when history refuses to stay buried?
The auction house sat like a sleeping beast in the heart of London, cloaked in velvet drapes and thick silence. Ethan Caldwell stepped inside with the casual swagger of someone who had tamed beasts far more intimidating hostile boardrooms, failed startups, and the crushing pressure of legacy. His black suit was tailored, his gaze sharper than the winter air outside. He wasn't here for art. He was here for power stories with a soul. Lot 47, the auctioneer announced, his voice echoing beneath the grand chandelier. An authentic Ming Dynasty funerary vase, circa 1400. Provenance unclear, rumored to be cursed by a betrayed empress. A quiet murmur stirred the gathered elite. Ethan leaned forward. There it was. The vase was breathtaking tall and narrow, glazed in cobalt blue with swirling clouds and phoenixes that danced across its surface. But it was the face nestled among the patterns that caught his eye, a woman's face, half-turned, both serene and somehow expectant. Starting bid, £1 million, 2.3. Ethan said before anyone else could move. The room hushed. The gavel fell. Sold to Mr. Caldwell. As his driver loaded the vase into the trunk of his Rolls-Royce, Ethan felt something he hadn't in years. Triumph. The kind you couldn't frame or insure. His estate outside Surrey was bathed in soft golden lights that evening. Olivia had outdone herself white orchids on every table, a string quartet playing his mother's favorite Debussy, and even Ethan's estranged brother Daniel had shown up, half drunk but grinning. "Is that the haunted vase?" Daniel asked, swaggering over to the study where Ethan had placed it under a spotlight. "It's not haunted," Ethan replied dryly. "It's history. But if you hear whispers, let me know, I'll sell the story rights." Daniel laughed and toasted the vase with his whiskey glass. Olivia lingered in the doorway, her eyes narrowing. "Something about it feels wrong," she murmured. "It's porcelain," Ethan said. "It doesn't bite." But that night, the vase was not in the study. Daniel was the first to die. 3 nights later, Olivia found him in the library, collapsed on the rug. His eyes were wide open, mouth twisted as though he'd seen something terrible. His fingers clutched at his chest, nails broken from the effort. Paramedics arrived too late. The coroner ruled it a heart attack, sudden and inexplicable. He was 32, a personal trainer, no history of heart disease. When Olivia wandered into the library later, she froze. "The vase," she whispered. "Ethan, it's here." He turned. The vase stood proudly on the mantel, as if it had always been there. "But I moved it," Ethan said, frowning. "You saw me put it in the study." "Maybe someone moved it," Olivia said quietly. But her voice lacked conviction. Neither of them touched it. The second death came sooner than expected. Margaret Caldwell collapsed during dinner. One moment she was laughing at a joke. Daniel once told, then she gasped, clutched her nose as blood began to stream from it, and whispered, "The woman, she's watching." She died before they could get her to the hospital. Ethan buried her with the same numb efficiency he brought to business failures. Detective Sarah Vance arrived the next morning. She was tall, pale, and impeccably dressed in a navy trench coat that made her look more like an academic than an investigator. But her eyes, sharp and lined with experience, missed nothing. "2 deaths in a family is statistically rare," she said after reviewing the scene. "Your brother? And now your mother? Within days?" Ethan bristled. "You're suggesting foul play." "I'm suggesting caution," she said, her gaze lingering on the vase. "That's quite a piece you've got there. Know its history? It's just a vase." "Nothing's ever just a vase." Olivia could feel the strain behind Ethan's eyes. He hadn't slept since Daniel's death. Neither had she, because at night she heard footsteps in the hallways, and sometimes breathing. Just behind her, Sarah Vance returned with news. "Not good news. I've been looking into previous owners of that vase," she said, setting down a file. "None of them are alive." Ethan flipped through it. Faces, names, obituaries. One man had drowned in his bathtub, another threw himself off a balcony. A wealthy French collector had scribbled a final note. "She's here. I let her in." "I've also had the vase examined," Sarah added. "The patterns shift under direct light. Subtly. You have to look closely." Ethan shook his head. "So now you think it's haunted?" "I think someone or something wants attention." That night, Olivia woke up screaming. "She was standing over us," she sobbed. "She spoke Mandarin." I didn't understand the words, but I knew what she meant. Ethan held her. She trembled like a leaf in a storm. He didn't ask how she knew it was Mandarin. She was an artist, not a linguist. But he didn't sleep either, because now he too had started seeing flickers. In mirrors. In mirrors. On glass, the woman's face. Always the same. Beautiful, regal, and full of pain. The next day, Ethan found Mr. Yin. The man was waiting at the estate's front gate, dressed in a dark green coat and worn shoes. His smile was calm. Too calm. I heard you acquired the vase, he said. You're a collector? Not anymore. I'm a messenger. Ethan raised an eyebrow. For who? The empress, Yin said softly. She's not done yet. Ethan didn't let him in, but Yin's words followed him back to the house. That night, Olivia told Ethan she was pregnant. He stood motionless, emotions warring in his chest. Joy, fear, dread. Because the vase sat in the hallway now, and they had locked the study door. The morning after Olivia's revelation, the air inside the Caldwell estate felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Olivia sat by the sunroom window, a blanket draped over her shoulders. The tea she held had gone cold. Ethan watched her from the doorway, trying to summon the right words. You should rest, he finally said. I don't think rest will help, she replied without turning. Not when it's already inside the house. He didn't ask what it was. He had begun to understand. Later that afternoon, Sarah Vance returned, a folder tucked beneath her arm and a weary look shadowing her face. I found a name, she said. Empress Li Lian. Ethan raised an eyebrow. She was a concubine to the Ming Emperor Xuande, Sarah continued. Historians believe she was poisoned by the emperor's first wife, Consort Wang, out of jealousy. But before dying, she left behind a curse. Ethan scoffed. A legend. Sarah placed the folder on the table. Inside were charcoal rubbings of ancient inscriptions, translations, and a map of a tomb located somewhere in Henan province. It's not a legend if the deaths keep happening, she said. Your family tree, your maternal line descends from Consort Wang's household. That vase was her funerary urn. It's not an object, it's a message. Why now? Ethan asked. Why my family? Why me? Sarah looked at Olivia, who had entered quietly. Because she was buried angry, and someone must have disturbed her tomb recently. These things don't happen randomly. The following night, Ethan's uncle Richard died in the estate's swimming pool. No witnesses, no signs of trauma, but the security cameras caught something chilling. At 2:46 a.m., the footage showed Richard doing laps under a full moon. Then, the water began to ripple unnaturally. He stopped swimming and looked around. A fog rolled in from nowhere. Then he went under, no splashing, no fight. When his body surfaced an hour later, his face was calm. Too calm. Sarah reviewed the footage over and over. It's her. She's not just haunting you, she's choosing. Deliberately. Ethan buried his uncle beside Daniel and Margaret. No press, no ceremony, just silence. The vase now sat in the dining room. Ethan didn't remember moving it. Olivia's dreams grew darker. I saw her again, she whispered one morning. She was standing in the nursery. We don't have a nursery, Ethan said quietly. I think we will, she replied, eyes wide with something between fear and conviction. Sarah arrived later that day with someone new in tow, a historian named Dr. Li Wen. I've studied Ming funerary artifacts my entire career, Dr. Li explained. The Empress's urn was designed not just to contain her remains, but to serve as a vessel for her rage. Like a spiritual weapon, Sarah added. Dr. Li nodded. Exactly. And if the family of her murderer ever came into contact with it? She kills them, Ethan said flatly. No, Dr. Li corrected. She makes them feel what she felt. Isolation, betrayal, loss. The deaths are a result of the pain overflowing. Then how do we stop it? Olivia asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Li hesitated. You return it, to her tomb, with reverence. And if we don't, she'll keep going, until there's nothing left. That evening, Olivia fainted in the hallway. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. She was burning up, coughing thick, black phlegm that smelled of burning incense and decay. Her eyes fluttered open only once, and she whispered in perfect Mandarin, She's not done. They rushed her to the hospital. Doctors were baffled. All tests came back normal, yet her condition worsened. Ethan sat beside her hospital bed, staring at her fragile form, and felt something snap inside him. He had always believed everything could be fixed if not by logic, then by wealth. But neither had stopped the curse. He called Sarah. "We're going to China." Mr. Yin was waiting for them at the airport. "I told you," he said softly. She was not done. "What do you know about the tomb?" Ethan demanded. Yin smiled sadly. "My ancestors served Empress Li. One of them buried her." "You knew this would happen. I was only the messenger." "The vase? It finds who it needs to." Ethan stared at him. "Then why are you still alive?" Yin pulled back his sleeve. A scar shaped like a phoenix curved along his forearm. "Because I gave her blood," he said. "Once. Willingly." Ethan felt bile rise in his throat. Sarah looked at Yin with new understanding. "You're her servant. I'm her warning." They flew to Zhengzhou, then took a car deep into the Henan countryside. The landscape shifted from neon cities to hushed villages and misty hills. At the base of a forested cliff lay the entrance to a hidden tombstone that Dr. Li had pinpointed using ancient maps and soil analysis. It was sealed by stones etched with dragons, their mouths open in eternal screams. Sarah wrapped the vase in sacred silk, each knot tied with care and an incantation provided by a temple monk. "Do not look back once you enter," Dr. Li warned. The wind howled as they stepped inside. The tomb was narrow, lit only by Ethan's flashlight. The walls were painted with faded murals of court life dancers, gardens, a woman with her hair pinned high, always painted in the center. At the final chamber, Ethan placed the vase on a stone pedestal. Sarah began to chant, voice trembling as the wind roared through the cavern, though no entrance remained open. Shadows danced across the walls. Olivia's name echoed in the stillness, whispered in a dozen voices. The air thickened. A shape formed tall, regal, translucent. Empress Li. She looked at Ethan and smiled. Then she vanished. The earth shook. The pedestal cracked. The vase shimmered and dissolved into ash. And then, silence. They returned home a week later. Olivia began to heal. The black cough stopped. Her eyes cleared. No more footsteps. No more dreams. Ethan stood by the library one evening, staring at the empty mantel. He exhaled, a long breath he didn't know he'd been holding for weeks. And then he heard it. A whisper. Faint. Mandarin. He turned. Nothing there. Just the fire crackling. Sarah Vance went back to her flat in London. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat at her desk, where a single shard of blue porcelain gleamed under the lamp. She didn't tell Ethan she'd kept it, just in case. Spring touched the Caldwell estate with soft winds and the scent of renewal. Weeks had passed since Ethan and Sarah returned from China. The vase was gone. Olivia's health had stabilized. For the first time in months, peace seemed possible. Ethan threw himself into restoring order, fixing what could be fixed. He repainted the library, removed anything remotely antique from the house, and even considered selling the estate. Olivia gently vetoed that. "This place carries memories," she said. "Good ones too. Let's not let fear erase everything." Ethan tried to agree, but he still kept the lights on at night. And he avoided mirrors. Sarah Vance's London flat was filled with occult books now. She couldn't shake the feeling that they had only silenced Empress Li, not defeated her. One evening, she examined the porcelain shard she'd kept. Its edge was impossibly smooth, and the painted eye on it seemed to blink under certain angles of light. That night, Sarah dreamed of her sister. Not as she had died, but as she had been, laughing, whole. When Sarah woke up, the shard had moved across the table. She wrapped it in black velvet and placed it in a lead-lined box, then locked it in her closet. Some ghosts, she decided, wanted to rest. Others wanted to wait. 3 months after the vase was returned, a letter arrived for Ethan. No return address, no stamps, just a folded sheet inside, covered in Chinese brush script. He showed it to Olivia, who had been taking language classes since their ordeal. She read it aloud. "Her silence is a loan, not a gift. The blood remembers. When the moon weeps jade, the veil shall thin again." Olivia looked up, disturbed. Ethan swallowed. "What does that even mean?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but I think we should be ready, just in case." Later that week, a delivery arrived at a package from Shanghai. Inside, a jade pendant shaped like a teardrop. There was no note. One night, Olivia dreamed of a vast palace, silent and snow-covered. She stood in its center, a cracked vase at her feet, and Empress Li across from her, cloaked in shadows. "You're not like the others," the Empress whispered. Olivia replied without fear. "I feel your pain." Li's face softened, if only slightly. Then remember it. Or someone else will have to. When Olivia woke, her hands were stained with soot that wouldn't wash off until sunrise. She told Ethan everything. He didn't sleep that night. Ethan took action. He had a steel vault built beneath the estadia room lined with salt bricks and mirrors. Sarah called it a containment chamber in case anything ever returned. Olivia painted symbols across the wall images she'd seen in dreams. Daniel's ghost had appeared to her once, briefly, warning her not to throw away the jade pendant. It marks the Watcher, he'd said. Without it, she doesn't know where to look. They kept it in the vault too. Just in case. Months later, Sarah got a call from a coroner in Macau. A man had been found dead in a temple, lying peacefully beneath a statue of Guanyin, the goddess of mercy. His cause of death? Heart failure. In his chest, pressed over his heart, was a single blue porcelain shard. His ID read, Yin Liang. Sarah flew to Macau, retrieved the shard, and added it to her collection. 3 now, a pattern. Back home, she began to document everything. The vase, the deaths, the visions. She titled the file, The Vessel Legacy. On the anniversary of the first death, Ethan held a quiet dinner at the estate. Just family, no toasts, just gratitude. He looked at Olivia across the table and thought how far they'd come. Her hand rested on her belly, now pregnant again. Stronger this time. She said the dreams had stopped. But as the evening wore down, Ethan went to the library and stood before the fireplace. There, for just a moment, he saw a faint blue shimmer in the embers. Then it vanished. He closed his eyes. The whisper came again, just one word this time. Remember. Sarah Vance walked through the British Museum, quietly bypassing the guided tours. She moved past the Egyptian wing and the Greco-Roman artifacts, heading instead for the restricted section. There, in a private archive, she added her 3 porcelain shards to a locked case. She looked into the glass. Her reflection stared back, and then blinked. But she didn't flinch. She simply whispered, I know you're still watching. As she left the room, the lights flickered briefly and a single line etched itself into the case's interior. Some vessels never empty. They just wait to be refilled.
Enjoyed the story? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next one.